Welcome to the Co-Lab Podcast. My name is Michelle.
And my name is Devin.
On this podcast, we explore concepts of self-mastery and community collaboration
through in-depth panel discussions and intimate interviews with dance's most prominent figures.
Yeah, she my peanut butter jelly snack, pull it ride, but she painting. That's my sunshine when it's raining. That's my boo, yeah. When I'm all alone, she pulled through.
Welcome back, everyone, to the Co-Lab Podcast. I'm here with my co-hosts, Devin and Michelle. And today we have a very special guest. He's the one that we've known our whole lives. To the general public, he's an award-winning gold medalist chef. But to us, he's the patriarch that keeps our family together. His unconditional love and support are what makes us feel very blessed to call him our dad. Larry, or more well-known, Chef Larry Banares, was born in San Diego, California. And what few people know is what he's been dancing and performing since the very young age of 5.
Ballet, tap, jazz, flamenco, Hawaiian, Tahitian, and Filipino folk dance are just a few of the dance arts that Larry trained in. From a competitive dancer to performing alongside the legendary Tom Jones, Larry knew the intricacies and understood the challenges of being a performer. As an adult, Larry transferred his creativity into becoming a world-renowned executive chef, cooking for dignitaries and celebrities across the globe.
Like our mom, when he was able to, our dad made it a priority to watch all of our shows and competitions. When we opened up our studio back in 2011, he hand-painted a mural that would forever be ingrained in our hearts and minds as a symbol of hard work that we put into our studio. Larry, our dad, has shown love and support through each and every one of our dance journeys, and we feel very privileged to have him here with us today. Please welcome him to our show. Dad! Yay!
Welcome!
Yay, I made it.
Yay.
I made it as part of the Co-Lab Podcast. I can truly say honored and extremely happy to be here amongst you guys.
We're so happy to have you. Thanks for being here. Well, and you've been on our radar for quite some time. Obviously because we know you and we know your history. And actually, as we were younger, I don't think any of us really knew how involved in dance you were until later on in life. And then we started discovering all these hidden talents that you had. I mean, we knew you were very talented. We knew you were very creative. And we would hear kind of bits and pieces. But I didn't know that you had been dancing since the age of 5. And kind of the joke in our family is that you weren't a professional, but that is up for debate because I think everyone else thought you were a professional dancer in the community.
So as you kids were growing up, I think the main thing for me was work, right? I was already at that time establishing myself as a culinary professional and working in the industry, which happens to be one of the most demanding industries of all. So a lot of work, a lot of long hours, a lot of holidays and stuff spent away from the house. So the whole thing about my early childhood and all those other kind of things kind of just, were left undercover. But I think as you guys began to explore dance more in your own area, I said, well, you got to get it from someone. Of course, your mom's a great dancer too. But, our DNA comes from a group of professional dancers, or not professional dancers. We'll get into that later, I'm sure. But so that's very much pre-Chef Larry and more Chef Larry growing up as a dancer and performer.
Mm-hmm. Dancer, Chef Larry. Dancer.
Sometimes I still dance in the kitchen. Sometimes things get a little bit hairy. And
You make a return to dance.
but there are similarities. I mean, when you look at rhythm and when watch a chef work, a certain rhythm, certain kind of cadence he works to, and I think maybe the inner metronome or time clock that you have as being a dancer before kind of allows you to flow and move with relative ease in the kitchen. So if there's a correlation, that would be it.
That's so
and
interesting.
It takes practice, like anything else. To be good at anything you do, obviously it takes practice, which is something you guys have talked to with many of your very special guests who I listen to on the podcast. It gives me inspiration too, because they're, dance is like anything else. It makes you happy, it motivates you, and keeps you going.
One of our guests from our previous season, Kiara, she has started to work a little bit in the food industry, and she spoke to exactly your point of how there's a certain cadence, a certain rhythm, just sort of this profound bit of choreography as you work through the kitchen, right? And you're spatially aware of everything that's happening around you. And so I think that's really interesting that both of you were able to tie that connection between dance and food.
Watch a finely tuned kitchen work, putting out service. You can. It's almost choreographed. So it's choreographed chaos, but you kind of know what everyone's doing simultaneously because you know the kitchen very well. So you kind of feed off each other's energy, and you kind of know without speaking a lot of words what direction everyone's moving in and what happens next, so to speak.
What's your earliest memory of dance? I mean, I don't remember much when I was 5, but I'm interested to hear what your earliest memory is.
My earliest memory was being brought to the dance studio to watch my sister, who was 2 years younger, do ballet. And I was made to sit there and watch my sister Denise do ballet, and not knowing that my presence was there as a precursor to me actually learning how to do ballet. I learned ballet because my sister needed a partner, and I started attending ballet class with her. And the earliest memory was, going in to watch, and then very quickly being put into a pair of tights, which was 5 years ago kind of traumatic, and just the noise of our first ballet teacher with a cane keeping time. She didn't train us by music. She would have a cane, and she would just tap the cane, and as we were doing going through our paces and learning how to do ballet. So ballet was the first thing that we learned, which I think for a dancer is an excellent foundation to learn, because I think a lot of the dance terminology now, even present day with hip hop, contemporary, is all based on classical ballet terminology and all that kind of good stuff. So great foundation for me, from posture to where you put your feet, where you your body control, all those type of things. Ballet, I think, is at the foundation of every great dancer, I think.
What a nice big brother. Wow.
Yeah, and what was interesting, I became, as this kind of worked its way, we grew up, I would be asked to be the partner of all the other girls in ballet class. So I spent a lot of time not only learning what I needed to do, but also, if it was a class of 15 people or girls in the class, I would probably most likely be the only boy. So if it was even doing lifts and, spotting someone during a portion of a routine, I would have to be the one to do that over and over and over again. Until my mom put a stop to that later when we became competitive. She didn't want me training or dancing with anybody else other than my sister and my family.
Dang.
So it was very interesting for me.
What was your thought process going through such what I imagine to be rigorous training? I personally never did ballet, but I've heard stories of Ate taking classes, and then of course you. And I know that it's a very strict technique-based type of dance. What was that like, especially at age 5?
Yeah, we had the best. I think your grandma was very set on getting the best teachers available. I don't know how she foresaw that, but it would be like the very best ballet school could get in, the very best tap dance teacher, the very best flamenco teacher. So she would actually seek out, and maybe in those days, as I was thinking about the other day, she didn't have internet, we didn't have Yelp reviews, we didn't have anything like that. She just researched, and maybe by word of mouth, or she just found the best possible people. And I remember our first ballet teacher, her name was Irene Isham Clark. It's weird that I remember these names, but and she had danced before with a Russian ballet company. Wow. So you're talking about someone who was very stringent, to your point, Devin, very stringent, very tough, would not be against her principles to come over and tap you on the leg rather hard with her cane to get the right position out of you. So really, really driven, so it was first of all, let me say I had to do it, right? Because at 5 years old, you don't necessarily rebel or say you don't want to do it. You do what you're told. But it was difficult. It was difficult to do that. And as we went on through our kid years and preteen and even into teenage years, it was kind of hard because you weren't doing what normal kids would do. You were not riding your trike or bicycle out in the driveway or in the front yard playing. You would be to and from class or actually practicing, My parents got us involved very early in ballet, and after we began our ballet, then we quickly got enrolled in tap dance. And my mom, she sought out the best tap dancer. Kay Walker Dance Studio here in La Mesa was the best at tap. They were winning all the awards and stuff like that, so we were doing it there. And then we learned jazz dance, and she found Miss Vernetta, who was the best at jazz choreography, so we would go to her. So it was almost Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday. Different teacher every day, specialized, and she would just drive us all over town for that, and even finding a specialist who taught flamenco, Spanish dance, the best in the business, El Martin. So interesting that I remember all these names, but it's because we spent a whole lot of training sessions and hours working with these different choreographers and trainers. So we learned. My mom would always say we learn the authentic from the best. So, at the time, Russian ballet was thought of as the best ballet anywhere, the most disciplined, the most strongest ballet. So that's what we were enrolled in. So even to Polynesian dance, my mom sought out what was considered the best hula teacher, but then took my sister and I to a different Tahitian teacher because a lot of people associate Hawaiian dancing with Polynesian dancing as the same, but there's definitely a difference in Hawaiian and Tahitian dancing. So she found the very best at each and took us. It was like she was living kind of her life through us.
Yeah.
Very nitpicky.
Yeah, it was difficult.
The best for the best.
Yeah.
So we were constantly in dance. We were constantly in dance classes, rehearsals, and doing anything that I think that would enhance us to perform. Because soon we were entering dance competitions and stuff and competing, and whether it was learning an instrument to support a performance, whether it's playing ukulele so my sister could do hula dance, or learning Hawaiian tueri boards to play so she could do Tahitian, or even classical guitar so we could dance. We learned kind of pretty rapidly what it meant to be a total performer.
So, I think our listeners would be interested to know, especially because, in most of our dance experience, our peers, and we've talked about it a lot on the podcast, never really had support or full support from their parents when it came to dance. But I think they would be interested to hear your experience, because I know you've told us stories about how dance was the priority in your household.
Oh, definitely. It was definitely, and whatever vision, my mom had for us was to get in the business in our adult years, or it was, like I said, Monday through Friday, dance. Come home from school, do your homework, and then you better be practicing. And if we were practicing, for instance, tap dancing, and very obvious when somebody's tap dancing, my dad used to put down a piece of plywood to protect our floor, and we would dance on it. And if you stop dancing, you don't hear anything. And we'd stop and let kids goof around and take a moment, and we just hear, I don't hear anything. And then we go back to practicing, and it was just kind of that thing. We would practice every night. It would always be a different type of dance, and then typically on weekends, would be competitions, talent shows, much like there are dance competitions now. But the difference is those there were individuals, duos, and trios, but not like heavy groups of performers. We have 15, 20 people strong dancing. So I think what we lacked was camaraderie with other dancers. It was just us. And when I say us, it later became my sister Denise, myself, my younger sister Tammy, and my younger brother Benny Jr., DiGios Jr., and then my littlest sister, Michelle. So we all fell into the whole, performing arts and dancing. So we were our friends, and we were kind of also our fellow dancers. So it was interesting. It was very interesting because you're always together. If you're at one dance studio and you're coming home from that dance studio and you have maybe flamenco the next night, you're on their way home in the car playing castanets or playing instruments in the car or learning a song to support a show that was coming up. So it was constant. So I think it was an interesting childhood because there wasn't really one. It was more just geared toward practicing. Full immersion. My mom made all of our costumes. Sewed, measured us while we were dancing, while we were getting ready for a show. We'd be practicing, and she would be sitting there with the sewing machine, finishing up a costume. Then we'd have to stop, practicing, dry off or whatnot, put on the costume, not mess it up. Sometimes with straight pins in it because it still hasn't been totally sewn, and practice in it to make sure you had enough room to move or to do the splits or whatever was part of the routine.
Dance mom.
It was crazy.
The early years.
She was the complete dancer.
Next level.
Yeah,
next level dance.
Yes, she was definitely.
She had her hand in everything.
Yeah, I mean, she would cut patterns and show sew everything, and it was just amazing. Some of the. And when you arrive at a show or a competition, you had like a rack of different costumes and stuff like that. So I think Mom was obsessed with dance and getting us out there.
Yeah. Is it true that when you started attending competitions, Grandpa would bring a box to collect all the trophies that they knew you were going to bring home?
That was the fruit, I think, of all the hard work and blood and sweat and tears, if you want to call it that. And we would cry. I mean, sometimes we would cry. We didn't want to do it anymore. We couldn't get a stunt done. We couldn't get a particular part of I remember very, very vividly in my tap routine, the instructor would put in the basic steps of tap, and you do certain things, and then obviously the costume, the music added to it, but then you needed your stunts. You needed to do something that the other dancers weren't going to do, something unusual, something usually acrobatic or gymnastic or something like that put you aside from just being a regular dancer, keeping time. And I just remember there's a particular stunt that it was, the finishing move was, had a cane. I was dancing with a cane and had to jump over the cane. So just basically put the cane down and jump. And so the instructor said, okay, first take off your shoes. We're going to come on a mat and you're going to jump over the broomstick. And you get your foot caught, you'd fall down on the mat. You get your, you didn't time it right. You didn't, stretch your arms full enough, and you get caught up but then you learned how to do it. So you're in your stocking feet, and then you'd be able to jump the cane. Mm-hmm. But I couldn't rarely get over the cane in practice because you weren't compensating for a heel on a tap shoe and compensating another 1/8 of an inch for the tap that's on the shoe. So when I was doing rehearsals, I'd get it caught, and then you'd either drop the cane or you just make it over and fall. And these are kind of the hard things that you just stood there and you just kept doing it over and over and over and over, and you wouldn't leave or go to bed until you were able to jump over that cane with your tap shoes.
Wow. So
there were certain things that I think were a little bit too far in the way that we were handled. But then that work and I guess at that time torture to get that stunt or that thing mastered, it benefited on the competitions. Mm-hmm. And being good at something means you're put up against other people, especially locally. In those days, there was a lot of dance competitions. A lot of people were dancing and being able to roll into a particular competition. And my mom would enter us in as many categories as there were, whether it was Hawaiian dance or whether it was flamenco or whether it was jazz, whether it was tap, whether it was adagio, whether it was couples dance. We would be entered in many, many, many categories. So you would just be off the stage, and, in a tap version of the competition. Then you'd be changing into your jazz uniform, your jazz costume to do a jazz number, and we would win. We would win first place in a lot of the different categories. So your grandpa, being a very practical man and being a chef himself, rarely had time to come to our competitions. So after the first couple of competitions where we had to carry a bunch of trophies home, Grandpa would my dad would just show up with an empty box. And we were winning consistently. We were winning at a lot of the competitions, facing the same amount of dancers. And I think your grandpa indirectly was kind of sending a psychological message to the other dancers. And maybe they took it as such. It was practical for him to just bring a big box and then we'd load up all the trophies that we had won in that competition. But I think, him standing around at the award ceremony holding a box might have been
just waiting.
Misinterpreted as expectation that we were going to win.
Wow.
But we were winning, and your Aunt Denise was a great dancer, and your other aunties and uncles were great dancers too, and we'd be entered in every category, and I think that caused some people to be concerned a little bit later on, but we worked hard, and we worked harder than everyone else. We would walk in with costumes and the full gamut of whatever categories they would have. We would win, and we would always be praised and rewarded by my mom and dad, for first place only. We were taught kind of not to consider, second place or third place or honorable mention or the certificate a win. It was always have to be first place.
We treasure many of our honorable mentions.
Yeah.
I think it's interesting. We kind of touched on it earlier. Ate mentioned that a lot of what we've talked about on the podcast before is a different side where your parents don't support you. And so to hear you talk about your experience in dance and hear that it's such an extreme, I'm wondering, do you have a memory that you hold on to and think of fondly from your experience with dance, or has it all just kind of been forced on you?
I think for the most part, the memories of winning and achieving things has always been good. And then looking back, the ability to do that with my brothers and sisters, and to be able to go to the local convalescent home or the senior citizens thing or the Del Mar Fair and put on a 45-minute show with just your family. It's pretty amazing, that my little brother and sister could do their routine and we could fill it with an instrumental done by one of us, and then my sister come out and do a solo act, and then come out later and do another act later, but I could come in and do a tap routine, and we could basically do our own show with just our family. We were later formed our own little dance company of ourselves that we could do any genre. If you wanted a Hawaiian show, we could do a Hawaiian show. If you wanted a flamenco show, we do a flamenco show. If you wanted a variety show, we could come in and do, tap, jazz, contemporary. So memories, I think probably the best one is dancing at the Del Mar Fair. And it wasn't because we're dancing there and going through that, but it was more like it was at the Del Mar Fair. So we knew the payoff would be being able to be kids and kind of hang around the fair and do that. But not if we had a show the next day. But I remember, some of the things that my mom had to put up with, because when we became so good at the competitions and we were winning them, is music in those days wasn't played on a disc or whatnot, or downloaded into a computer. It was usually a record. So it was a 33 RPM or it was a 45. So you would run the risk, and some people had their music on tape, like the big tape reels, but that would cause the sound man to have a bunch of tapes and stuff. And so if there's anything that could go wrong during a dance performance, would be that, they didn't have your music cued and you're standing there forever waiting for your music to be cued. Wow. Or the sound tech himself would be playing your music on a record and then reach over to grab something, he'd bump it and it'd skip. And then, your thing was like, do I start over? Do I just stand here? Or are they gonna, and I remember our dance instructor said, just keep dancing, just keep dancing, just keep dancing. When the music stops, it stops. Then if they restart, you didn't dance. And I remember remembering the terminology of tap dancing, right? When you're at a loss or you're in the middle of something, and let's say you're at a business meeting, you forgot your presentation, or you forgot what you're going to say. They say, I was tap dancing, referring to still moving, still going until you got yourself on your feet again. Mm-hmm. So I think that was kind of one of the biggest memories was, being at a major dance competition. And my mom was so upset one time that happened to us that she got our own sound man. So
no lie.
our routine, our competition piece wouldn't be accidentally sabotaged or accidentally put offline. So it was really interesting. We had our own sound man that would show up at the shows, and if he'd approach it like he was like helping the sound man and volunteered to help him, but made sure our stuff came out right, without insulting the sound man. But he'd endear himself to the official sound man to make sure our sound went well for us. And then my mom would like us to play our own musical instruments so we could accompany ourselves sometimes.
Wow.
Yeah, it was pretty interesting. Yeah, it was pretty interesting.
Did you catch that word, sabotage?
Sabotage. Mm-hmm.
That's how afraid they were, huh?
That's how maybe paranoid we were that, we weren't going to get a fair shake. So just as much as people were like, these guys are going to win everything, these guys are here again, and God, there's so many of them, it was also like us being kind of, on our toes about what could go wrong, what could people do to us. Because it's hard as a kid to be there and then be like the center of gossip at a competition against other kids, or have your parent tell you, "Oh, don't talk to those kids. Don't associate with them. Stay with your guys. You guys are over here." And it was very much kind of that way.
Well, and so I remember we came across a newspaper article, and the whole family got a good laugh about it. I think Auntie Denise was the one who found it and shared it with us, and we couldn't believe it. I think we read it probably 50 times. We read it to each other, and it was sort of this long-standing joke with our family because it was an actual newspaper article talking about whether or not you, the Banares kids, were professionals, and there was a whole
controversy.
Yeah, there was a whole controversy around the fact that you guys were entering these amateur competitions, and everyone thought you were professionals because of the level that you were dancing and the awards that you were winning, and they didn't want you part of these competitions anymore. And there was this whole newspaper article.
So will you go on record with a full statement?
When it come out, 1978.
Yeah, it was
something like that.
It listed your home address.
It was at a point where we were kind of winning, a lot of competitions and stuff, and I think people took exception to that, and it was like anything else, when you're in a race car or you're in any other competition, you see what you can find a chink in the armor, and you try to expose that, and even if it does anything other than psychological damage, at least you got in somebody's head. So the rumors kept coming up that we should be disqualified for this competition. We show up and they'd have a judges meeting, and whether or not we're allowed to enter because we've won it so many times in the past before. And it was a lot of controversy, and even to the point that people lobbied that we were signed professional dancers under contract, and we should not be allowed to compete in local competitions. And there were cash prizes at the competition, so let's be real about that. It wasn't like you just win the trophy. You'd win $50 prize if you won the grand championship of the dance. But everyone's competing for that. But it was a local amateur competition. I think where the line got blurred a little bit was at the same time we were dancing, we had begun acting and being cast in musical theater. And I think maybe that perception was that, we had a contract or we shouldn't be allowed to do both, or, we were professional, which at that point we weren't, and we danced like professionals and we won like professionals. We conducted ourselves like professionals, but we were still amateurs because I remember, when we were doing the musical theater thing, there were certain limits to when we could perform, how long we could be on stage, how long we could be in a particular production, those type of things.
I don't think the Banares bros ever stirred such controversy.
So it was, and
I bet they're just like, who's this?
so in a way, I got why my mom was saying, don't talk to those people, don't don't associate with those kids. You belong over here. My mom put a stop to me when we went to class of helping other girls, like spot girls, and be their partner, stand-in partners. I wasn't allowed. She told me, "Come sit here. Go over. Go sit down. Don't do that."
It might make it in the newspaper article.
I was only
undercover.
my sister's partner, my family's partner as a group. We're doing a collaboration, another dance. But so going back to the article, my mom, your grandma, felt it right to issue a news statement in the newspaper,
the famous line,
stating that we were not professionals. We go on record, and that she was seeking. She was at the time seeking legal counsel on going after the people that were claiming we were professionals. Mm-hmm. So they got kind of hairy.
Wow,
which is just
we're just kids.
Insane. It's
insanity. We were just kids dancing.
I think it speaks to the magnitude that you guys were dancing, though, and you were talking about how you guys started going into acting. What were some of the highlights of that? Because I know that you guys had quite a few.
Yeah, and I think through dance we were advised of some musical theater, Starlight Opera, and they were casting, for a play, an original play called My Cousin Josefa, about the first Spanish family to arrive in California. And if I recall correctly, it starred some pretty big stars at the time that were going to be part of the production. One of them is Jed Allen. If you don't know who he is, you probably look him up. He was a soap opera TV star, but wanted to do theater, or was doing theater, so he was one of the leads. And Carla Alberghetti, who was the son of Anna Maria Alberghetti, who was a big singer and a big star at the time. So they were cast, and we went to the auditions, and they got us. And they said, "Wow, this is great because we could hire all you guys, but we could cast all of you guys, and we have 4 kids or 5 kids here. All are going to be dependable. You're all going to be in the same car coming to rehearsals, all that kind of stuff." So
and a good rate too, I bet.
Yeah, and a good rate, because we are just part of one family. And but again, we had to kind of abide by, musical theater is a little bit different than dancing because there's a time you compete and you're competing with other kids. But in musical theater, it's an adult world, so we had to limit performances, and sometimes 4 of us would perform and one of them would sit out because it was the time that that person couldn't perform because of just the limits on child labor. It was kind of very, very interesting. But when we got into theater, that was kind of an interesting thing because we performed together, and the fact that we were dancers, we were already kind of well versed on choreography and stuff like that, and could move well on the stage. So in musical theater, we did My Cousin Josefa. We did another play, Oliver Twist, and we did The King and I, the local production of The King and I, which I was also cast as the understudy for Prince Chulu Longhorn, which had a little bit more breaking away a little bit more into the acting and being on stage with the 2 main characters. There was particular scenes where, if you know the story, The King and I, the king has passed away and he's going to pass on things to the prince. And the 2 leads, Anna Leon Owens, the teacher, and the king himself. My role as Prince Chulu Longhorn had to be on stage, with the 2 leads. So that was kind of fun. But when we did that play, we also were cast as the children. So my brothers and sisters were cast as the Siamese kids.
Wow.
So your aunties and uncles were all in the same production, and there were certain times where they'd be playing as kids, and then the king would come into the scene, and they would immediately drop because there was this like irreverence for the king.
Yes.
He was like, they had to drop to their knees and bow.
Yes.
And I just remember my brothers and sisters, like they would get the giggles, and they would be bowing to the king, and they'd have to hold that bow, and they were always like just giggling. You could see their bodies shake and move, and then the director would have to kind of talk to us afterward and tell us not to laugh or to, because once you get the giggles, especially with your siblings, it gets kind of hard, and you see the other one kind of at the corner of your eye laughing and giggling. But we were kids after all.
Yeah,
but it was
you were
fun.
kids.
Yeah, it was a lot of fun.
Man, I mean, the more I hear you talk about your experiences, the more remarkable I think it is. And I think that it, I mean, we're biased because you're our dad. Mm-hmm. So of course we think you're extraordinary and you're wonderful and, you can do nothing wrong. But I think that our listeners can now see a different side of you because to the world, and I mean, we've talked about this before, I think the only reason why I had friends is because everyone knew Dad was Chef Larry on TV, right? Like all my high school friends. I have some friends that still want to be my friends, but all the other ones, they just wanted to be my friends because of Dad. But I think it's cool for like everyone to hear this other side of you. And so, I know it was really tough, and I know that it wasn't necessarily something that you did as being motivated on your own. But what were some of the biggest lessons or the biggest takeaways that you got from that experience?
I think obviously to try to be the best, because if you're the best of something, you're at there's very little question about your ability or your skillfulness to do execute something. And I just remember one of my memories of doing the theater was that we trained in the rehearsals were at USIU, School of Performing Arts, the United States International University. And that was just the location where the Starlight Opera had set up for us to rehearse and do stage things and do choreography and things like that. And I just remember showing up with my brothers and sisters to one of the first rehearsals, and we looked up, and everyone was at that time in their 20s, early 20s, and these guys were people who were actually studying to be performers at the university there. And just seeing how they, went around their business, and we had to be good. We had to be good, or it wouldn't have been cast. And then we went to the dance pieces, which were a little bit more choreographed for a more mature dancer, and then we had to keep up with that. It wasn't your dance teacher saying, patting you on the head and the twitch, go, do this. It was like if you weren't in your spot when they began rehearsal, you'd lose. Yeah, it was a problem. You wouldn't catch up, and there would be a couple of times where we were actually cast in 2 or 3 different productions, and we had to go from one rehearsal to the next rehearsal room and learn a whole different bit of choreography or staging for another production or whatnot. So it wasn't. So I think we had to be ready. I mean, if I learned anything, it had to be good at what you knew. You had to learn from other dancers. I remember in particular there was a gentleman. His name was Blake Torney, and I don't know why I remember his name. And I think I do remember why his name, because he's the first dancer I saw walk around in a jock strap. But that's how dancers did. Body is your form, is your physique, right?
Right.
And my mom was kind of appalled when she brought us to one of the first rehearsals, because there were people like in bodysuits and we were kids after all, and it was like he was telling us not to look at people, at a certain way, because she didn't want us to see them. But we're kids and we're inquisitive, and I remember Blake because he'd be in a jock strap and a t-shirt, and that's how he would perform and dance. And again, in this political age that we live in, all this kind of other stuff, it might be wrong or perceived as wrong, but that's how performers are. They would change in front of each other. They form a circle around each other and change into a costume or uniform in front of each other. And although we found that shocking, we learned how to do that. We learned that it was part of the process of being kind of an entertainer, a performer. So beyond, just learning things about being prepared and being, growing up faster because you're an adult. You're in a kind of an adult world performing. It was interesting. It was very interesting experience. I mean, I look back on it now. I kind of, like you guys, marvel a little bit about the things we accomplished as dancers. It was so long ago, but at the same time, it's still kind of fresh in my mind because, we experienced it. We went through it, and it was a part of our childhood. Like, someone has another hobby. They played Little League. They were Girl Scouts. They were this. We were performers. We were dancers. Mm-hmm. Dancers, entertainers.
That's just crazy. It's so crazy because we're in it, and we attended a lot of competitions, but there was such a different air about it. Mm-hmm. You and Mom were very supportive, but it was never a push. Mm-hmm. It was never you have to do this. And so I think we definitely had a different experience. We were driven by passion. Mm-hmm. So it's really interesting to hear your experience because yours wasn't necessarily driven by passion.
No, it wasn't. But I think what was interesting about it is that we knew how to turn it on, so to speak. So we knew, and we were taught that when you dance jazz, or tap or any of those kind of contemporary dances, that you had a certain facial. You guys call them facials now. You had to smile. You had to, bring people into it. When you did flamenco, for instance, it's a dance kind of rooted in pain and struggle. So you had more of a stoic look. You're more passionate. You're more driven. So I think we were good because we were good. We trained very, very hard, and we could move, I think, effortlessly between the different genres and stuff, and have the passion that was built into that dance. Mm-hmm. Passion that conveyed to whoever was either judging us or who we were performing for, that they understood what we're trying to get across. I remember our flamenco teacher my sister was doing a dance, and it was a flamenco dance, and it was the fire, She was dancing around the flame. It was a gypsy dance, I believe, and the instructor would just go at her and do this, lean in, and you're dancing to the flame, and you just kind of got that vibe watching him because he was so good at what he did. His name was El Martin, and he was just a phenomenal flamenco dancer. So, there's certain dances I think that we enjoyed more than others. I love tap. It was kind of my wheelhouse. And I think I liked because, and just like flamenco, I was also very good at flamenco, is that you weren't dancing along to the music. Those two genres of dance, you're creating the music, right? You're part of the instrument. Mm-hmm. You're part of the beat, the staccato, whatever it is, and those two genres of dance that you're contributing to, at least not only the visual, but you're also, contributing to the audio portion of that by being part of the instrument. So it was great memories. After all, we did it, we went through it, and it was fantastic. I was listening to an interview the other day, which was kind of struck home a little bit, and I was listening to the Bosco brothers, right? Mm-hmm. Dante, Dion, and of course, with a new movie coming out, the Fabulous Filipino Brothers, and I was listening to the interview with them, and they started out kind of the same. Mm-hmm. Their mother would, sacrifice, not having a life of her own, but driving them to auditions. Every single audition they would be at, they would drive across town. They would load up the car. She'd pack them lunches because they knew the auditions may be, all day long. They moved from Northern California to LA to be closer to Hollywood. I remember one occasion, Mom packing us in the car and took us to Hollywood to audition for a Hollywood TV show. Mm. And we did a screen test. So you talk about, what motivates somebody to that extreme to do that, and then also to what could have been, right? Mm-hmm. But at the same time, it's also entertainment is a highly competitive, industry. When we were selected to dance as background dancers with Tom Jones, we heard that there were auditions, and just like with dance auditions for shows, throngs of people show up, and me and my sister were selected, cast, and we were kind of in front of the older dancers for that performance, and being, whisked into the back area, being kept separate from the other dancers because they were older, but, being on stage with them, performing, getting off the stage for one number with Tom Jones is pretty amazing stuff. Mm-hmm. So, yeah, it was interesting. I think it was something we were force fed, but I think, we knew that it was an uphill battle going against it. So we pretty much bought into it. We had fun. We kind of had fun with it,
Yeah.
No way.
I think that's an important nuance for us to take pause and just really sink our teeth into is, again, a lot of what we've talked about in previous episodes is the desire, the passion, right? We do it because we love it. Mm-hmm. But hearing Dad's story, all of that passion, desire, and want doesn't really mean anything unless there's dedication, hard work, commitment, long hours that go to back that up.
And it wasn't easy. I think the one thing for me, the biggest problem, full disclosure, that I had with being a performer at that time would be that, you're sitting in school and you're looking, at all the other people in the class, right? And then maybe you want to hit up this girl. Did I say hit up this girl? Hit up this girl next to you, right?
You sure did.
And you're talking with her, and then somebody else goes, "Hey, you're talking to Twinkle Toes. He's Mr. Tap Dancer."
Yeah.
And because they saw in the newspaper that your picture in your sequined vest with your top hat that you had won the state dance championship. Mm-hmm. And I think it's nothing that a teenager kind of wants to hear.
No, yeah.
Whatever biases, whatever stereotypes for dancers in those days existed, but at the same time, it was you didn't want that kind of attention.
Sure.
At the same time, you just wanted to be just like everyone else,
yeah.
Right? And if they would have had a hip hop dance crew in those days, then it would be okay for me to probably be a member of the hip hop dance team. But we were individuals, or we would be called to the local, morning show, and we'd dance on TV that morning. And if somebody would mention, "Oh, there's Twinkle Toes or so and so because doing his little ballet dance, on TV with his sister," and it was painful because you're a kid and you don't understand that. Who cares? That's what I do. You're a little bit more sensitive to those type of things. But we got quite a bit of publicity, and I just remember my best friend Eddie knew me as a dancer in those days, and that's why he's my best friend today, because it didn't matter what I was doing. I mean, he had to do his violin lessons and his piano lessons himself, but it was some people just don't get it. You have a talent, and we were good, and we trained hard, and we were given the best instructors, and parents made a lot of sacrifice for us. But if we weren't good, nothing would have stuck, right?
Right.
So we had to have some natural talent to be able to do, what we did. So, interesting childhood.
I mean, comparing to what you had to go through growing up, I kind of felt that.
No.
Listen.
How so?
In elementary school, when I first started dancing, a lot of my classmates would be like, "Oh, you dance? What do you do? Are you girly?" Or well, I mean, back in those days, people would say that, "Oh, you dance? What do you
They turn
ballet?"
it into something negative.
Yeah, they turn it into something negative. Mm-hmm. So, in elementary school, when I was first finding dance and learning to love it, I got a lot of negative comments about it.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And so, probably until high school is when I opened up about dance. My life in elementary school and middle school, they would ask, "What do you like to do? What is your hobby?" I would just say basketball or some sport. So kids would have known me. "Oh, you're that dancer
You're a
kid."
dancer, yeah. Mm-hmm.
"Oh, you do that? Why don't you play sports?"
Yeah.
So it's going back to what Dad was saying about going to all these competitions with your siblings. There's a lot of parallels between myself, Devin, Michelle, and our brother Jordan. Mm-hmm. It's very interesting to see how different it is from forced forced competition to just that organic competition. You know what I mean? Because I feel like
sort of forced.
Sort of forced. Sort of forced.
By your sisters. Before
Yeah. No, we all have that competitive
There's peer
edge.
pressure, and I think there's sibling pressure, and that's good and bad. I think it's good, but I think at the same time, at least my experience with it, it was great because of the accolades and the things we won. I mean, like 3 years in a row, I made it to the state championship. 1 out of 3 times I won, and that's of all these talent shows throughout California. So, it was a great experience, and at my age, I was able to travel and perform and compete, and in that respect, it was very, very gratifying and good. But at the same time, you're like, would you rather be doing something else? Because I think maybe you're too young to think that hey, I'm ever going to turn this into a career or anything like that. But it watching you guys perform, either with each other or with other teams, it's like I get the same kind of nervousness, I get the same kind of sweaty palms right before you guys hit the stage, because I think more than the person maybe sitting next to me on the left or the right, I've been there and I kind of know what it feels like to be on stage when the lights come up. And it's an exhilarating feeling. I think I mean, we were kind of at an age where maybe we didn't really understand the magnitude of what we were doing or whatnot.
Yeah.
But along the way, it's nice to know that talent went somewhere. Went to you guys.
That's so nice.
Yeah. Yeah. Thanks.
And maybe to Cameron.
Thanks for sharing your.
Maybe to my grandson.
Maybe. I don't know.
My grandkids to be. All be dancers.
Maybe.
Yeah, but I mean, hats off to my mom. Mostly, she kind of drove the whole dance mom thing, and I mean to the extreme, guys. From costumes and buying tap dance shoes and painting shoes to match the uniforms and all that type of stuff. And obviously my dad for funding all that. And if it all went for naught, which I don't think it did, it all made us, I think, pretty good people.
Yeah.
At least understand.
Absolutely.
And you can invest it in something else with your kids, but I mean, that's what my parents, particularly my mom, and I mean, in the early teens, it was fun because at that point, I was doing other things like I was either instrumentalist backing up the dancers. When we were doing the whole Polynesian dance, I was able to learn and do fire knife dancing, be a performer and do that, but also to learn how to play the instruments, the tueri boards, play the drums and stuff like that. And you'd have 15 girls shaking their booties in front of you, and you're just playing the drums. So I'm looking back on it, but obviously those things weren't in my mind. But at the same time, it's probably maybe if I could go back, that would be it. And it was an ensemble, so it wasn't. I guess again, the story behind that was probably it was better because the pressure was off because we were supporting. My sister may have been one of the dancers, but it wasn't like it was just me and her, performing. I think we kind of branched out into being more in an ensemble, and particularly in the Polynesian dance.
So, with all that dance experience and knowledge, we've kind of, as like siblings, and when we started the studio, we've gotten advice from you about a lot of technical stuff. When we do stretches, the plie, or when we learn ballet positions, you see Dad in the back. He's like kind of just running through his head. Yeah. Like, yeah, that's correct. And then he would pull us to the side. He's like, let me show you how to do it right. So
to this day, I can, I know all 5 positions.
Yeah.
And then, the terminology, whether it's rondéjean, grand plié, piqué, tour jeté. I mean, I remember relevé. I mean, pretty much kind of stuck in my mind from all those days. Maybe I'm reverting back. Maybe I'm reverting back to my early childhood. I'm going to break out the tap shoes again. I probably still could hold a pretty good beat, but who knows? So it was great. I mean, the whole thing about it is it was unusual. I think for maybe not so unusual if you were in competitive dance, but I think it was unusual for us to experience some of the things we experienced and some of the politics involved with, with how those competitions were run and, whether or not we were, paid professionals or whether we had contracts or whether this was, but who knows? And I don't really know to this day. So I would like to say maybe it still is a very controversial topic, whether or not we're professional or not. Because
I think so.
As a kid, we weren't involved in any decisions or anything like that.
Yeah.
But perception was that we were professionals.
Yeah.
Dancers.
So Netflix, if you're listening to this, we need a documentary
Were they professional?
The controversy.
on the controversy and call it Not Professionals.
Question mark.
Question mark. Yeah.
Big question mark.
I think it's time to put Dad in the spotlight again.
For sure.
With our rapid fire.
Okay.
I
Okay.
think so. So, Dad, the way
Are these
you've
some
listened
cooking
to
questions
our
or?
no, you've listened to our rapid fire before, and so basically, I know you've watched all of our podcast episodes. So I'm going to set a timer for 45 seconds, and Dylan
Okay.
is going to go through a series of rapid fire questions, and the idea is to answer as quickly as possible within the 45 seconds.
Okay.
And we'll get through as many questions as possible before the timer goes off.
Okay, you ready, Dad?
Do you have the question not that hard? I think.
No.
No. All right, ready.
We'll find out.
Count. Tell me when to go.
Set. Go.
If you could choose one age to be the rest of your life, what age would you be and why?
27.
Why?
27. It's about a good age,
Okay.
I mean, yeah.
Number 2, chef or dancer?
Dancer.
Wow.
I'm reverting back, I'm telling you.
What did you eat for breakfast this morning?
2 pieces of toast,
Okay. If you had
coffee.
Okay. If you had 4 extra hours in a day, what would you do with them?
Housework. Clean around the house.
Favorite food?
Minimalize things.
Favorite food?
Adobo.
Time.
Oh.
All right. We're going to cheat,
I didn't
though.
get through that.
We're going to cheat because we didn't get through a lot of the questions I wanted to get through.
I
so.
agree. 27 is a pretty good age.
Yeah.
And it's kind of hard to explain the nuance behind the age of 27, but you're well into your 20s, but just before your 30s.
And yeah, I think it was probably already building on the career and well established in a career. My culinary career really took shape, believe it or not, at the kind of the age of 16. And I was kind of dancing and still, but I had to work because I wanted a used car and stuff like that. So it would have been 10 years in the new career, cooking and stuff like that. And so, yeah, I think that would be a good age.
I agree.
And
You have
you
some
already had
wisdom.
me. You
Yeah,
already had
and
me.
you had some wisdom in some things you didn't know.
They already had me.
Well,
That brought value to their lives.
Okay.
yes, for sure.
Okay, favorite.
Okay, Dylan, go.
Okay. If you could travel anywhere in the world, where would you go?
Rota, Spain. And the reason being that the one missing from the table of the Banares siblings is your brother Jordan.
Jordy.
And he's in Spain serving the country in the U.S. Navy. So I would go see him.
I thought you were going to say Philippines.
Yeah.
I thought you were going to say...
That's a close second.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it would be second.
Philippines?
It would be second.
Okay. Favorite song right now?
Disco, yes. By Tom
Yes.
I love it.
Okay.
And I love it because my grandson was running around the other day saying he doesn't ever want to hear it again.
Because
But it's a great song.
Play it all the time.
I play it all the time.
It's an
that's why.
instrumental song, and it's
I love
I
it.
play guitar, so it's a good guitar song.
So I feel as though we need to circle back to the second rapid fire question where Dad chose dancer over chef.
Mm-hmm.
Can you expand on that?
Apparently, you guys haven't seen me dance lately. No, been blessed to have been, in my current career for a number of years and have had great experiences and traveled the world doing that and had, some success. I mean, even from the award standpoint, but maybe again, I'm going back to my childhood and revert my childhood. But so I have a rather long commute to and from work. So, music is my company in the car, and you can feel the music, you feel the beats, you can feel, and I play guitar, so I always single out the guitar part first, but there's a lot of elements that go into a song, and I feel the music. So I've always felt good about music and movement and stuff like that, and I'm about to break out with a new TikTok sample for you guys. I'm better than those people I see. A lot of the people I see.
A lot of the people. Some people are really good on TikTok.
Yeah, I haven't seen those yet. But.
Well, and everyone has to start somewhere.
Yes.
So.
Agreed.
But I'm performing. I'm rehearsing.
Professional TikToker.
I'm rehearsing in the background.
All right, Dylan.
Okay, moving on with the next question.
Sure.
The most important question. Who's your favorite child?
Destiny.
Destiny's Child. Get it?
I think that one gets a pass.
Yeah, I don't. Some guy put me in a tight spot. I don't have a favorite child. I love all my kids.
Aw, that's so sweet.
Okay. Your favorite movie of all time?
Of all time?
Of all time.
Gosh. I may have mentioned it earlier. I have an affinity for King and I. I love the musical. Of all the musicals that are out there. It's hard to say. I like different movies. I like different genres. But I think that'd probably be my answer right now.
Okay.
Until Hobbs and Shaw comes out again.
If you could write a book, what would it be about?
Wow. Overall, probably life experiences, you know, and things I've learned over in my lifetime. Share with people. You know, it could either be a book about those type of things that I've experienced, or it could be a cookbook, because I certainly have done that as well. So, and maybe people find inspiration in both of those, whether it's a cookbook with experiences. I think that would be a part of it, because cookbooks are so fly by night, and everyone puts one out. Even people who really don't, you know, are not necessarily professional cooks put out a cookbook. But I think what's cool about it is I have a story to tell with probably everything I put in the book, either a personal experience or the motivation behind a particular recipe. So, did I answer your question?
Yes, you did.
Okay, I just want a long answer.
Your favorite TV show?
Okay, so being kind of an older school guy, I like Sanford and Son. Have you guys ever heard Sanford and Son?
Yes.
Do not look it up. It was it won't stand up, or it may stand up to today's scrutiny of being politically correct and all that kind of stuff, but certainly a show that was ahead of its time. It was irreverent, it was funny, and just one of my favorite classic shows.
I think you made me sit down and watch it one time. I was like, what is this show?
I thought you said, yeah, you were upset because it was either racist or you couldn't say that anymore and stuff like that. But
I think I was just shocked.
we just take things too seriously nowadays. I
Yeah.
mean, joke's a joke, and but anyway.
Yeah. Okay, next question. Would you rather live in the ocean or on the moon?
The ocean. And I think that's a culinary part of me, because just knowing that there's so many different types of seafood and wildlife in the sea, more than we don't know what's on the moon.
Mm-hmm.
Interesting perspective.
Maybe maybe you just need to bring crackers, because it is, after all, a big ball of cheese, isn't it?
The dad jokes.
The dad jokes are real.
Your favorite color?
Blue.
That's my favorite color.
Oh, you look
Wow.
at that. You guys had in common with your
I mean,
dad.
blue's a good color. I mean, it's a warm color. It's nice.
Yeah. Okay, your favorite book?
You have a lot, I think.
My favorite book. Yeah, I have. I just, again, going through my cookbook collection and stuff like that. Not a big reader. To sit down and have the time or, you know, patience to sit down and read like an entire book and have to stop and start. So I think mostly it's going to be cookbooks. But actually, I came across a book that I will start reading. It is actually a book written by former Philippine President Fidel Ramos, and I didn't know he had autographed the book for me.
Wow.
Personalized the book, and I think it's just a book of excerpts and wisdoms from being a political leader. So I'm interested to read that. So I'm going to try to read that one.
I would like to borrow that.
It's not my favorite yet, but could be.
Potential.
So, running for president, potential president of the United States, Chef Larry Banares.
I'd be the Rock's
Co-VP.
Yeah, I'd be. No, I don't.
Okay.
There's too many skeletons, because you'd have to solve whether I'm a professional or not, and I did something illegal.
Oh my gosh.
So I don't want that
Scandal.
controversy. Yeah, I don't want that controversy.
All right, would you walk on the beach or hike on a trail?
Probably the beach.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
That's a good answer. What's your dream job?
My dream job, that's an interesting question because I think I've had a pretty interesting job, you know. But since I think one of my most important job in life so far has been being a dad, I think my dream job would be a grandpa to my grandchildren.
Grandchild right now.
No, there's potential.
More
for
to come.
I mean,
Future,
there's potential,
future.
but right now.
Yeah, so I think my dream job would be
The count is one.
and I think it would be your mom's dream job as well, to be grandparents and then babysit all your grandkids, all of our grandkids.
Drive them to dance rehearsal.
Yeah, we'd start them in dance. We start them in ballet with the cane. Yeah, we start them up being performers.
I love it so much. Well, we went through all the rapid fire questions, Dad. Thanks for being a good sport.
Ours are tough. Yeah.
You know, I think it gives even us like a different perspective about you because, you know, we know you as our dad. We see you every week, but, you know, we kind of know the dad joke dad. But this was fun to get a new perspective on you. And, you know, this episode will be airing close to Father's Day and also close to your birthday. So I would just personally like to say, and we're going to say this on behalf of my fellow siblings and Jordy, we love you. Happy Father's Day. Happy birthday.
Thank you guys.
And thanks for being our dad.
No, it's been fine doing this. It's just been fine doing this.
It's
been fun doing this. Sometimes I don't have the words. But yeah, and I think too, this has kind of been a bit of an unveiling for me because not many people know this detail about me. Like you said, they may know me from the cooking side of it or whatever, you know, and very few know that was our past, and you know, but now it's out there. So happy to share it with you guys, and proud to be on your guys' show.
Thanks.
Enjoyed it.
Thanks, Ed.
Thank you. Love you too.
Thank you so much for listening to the Co-Lab Podcast.
If you enjoyed this episode, please show your support by leaving a review on iTunes.
And be sure to subscribe to our show wherever you get your podcast.
The conversation continues over on Instagram and YouTube with highlights from today's episode.
When you on the way, make that move. Can't stay dead, no, that's my boo. Yeah, that's boo.